Redditors, have you ever gotten a nick from a potential partner or love interest that instantly killed your attraction to them? If so, what happened? Talking about our interests, and after I listened to him blab about his lawnscaping business, I went to talk about my interests and he interrupted me to say, "Wow, you really have nothing interesting to say, do you?" He set the bar too high with lawnscaping. That's really his fault that nothing you had seemed interesting after that. I had the inverse of this happen. Went out with a guy who would not stop grilling me and I couldn't get him to actually answer any questions about himself. Finally just said, "Look, it's cool that you're so interested in getting to know me, but I'd like to hear about you too. What do you do in your free time?" He sat there and stared for a bit, then started listing off TV shows asking if I'd seen them. I had not. Finally he got to The Wire, which I'd seen a few episodes of, and because that was the only one I had any experience with, apparently that meant I needed a 20-minute monologue about what the show was about. I literally checked the clock when he started and it was a full 20 minutes. When he finally petered out, we just sat in silence for a second before he stood up, shook my hand and left without another word. The amount of time he spent plotting revenge, usually against his parents or ex-wife, should have been spent introspectively and on getting his life back on track. We broke up shortly thereafter, then we tried to reconcile. Then he smoked meth in front of me, and that was the end of that. Grabbed me by the face on the first date, stroked under my eyes and said, "You need to take better care of yourself. Sir, I'm a divorced 37-year-old with kids and those under-eye circles were passed down from my grandmother, they're family heirlooms. And get your hands off my face, we just met and this is not a Nicholas Sparks movie." Literally every single problem she had was someone else's fault. Even when there was proof it was her fault, she would argue non-stop that it was someone else's. She got in a car wreck and called insurance over and over again to tell them that it was the other person's fault. They checked the computer in her car because it saved her speed she was going right before the wreck. It told them everything they needed to know and she still denied it. He bullied someone in front of me. Instant disgust. Had a guy once whose car smelled so bad I had to try not to throw up while sticking my head out the window. He couldn't smell it. I thought I was going to die. Turns out he forgot about a double cheeseburger in the back of his car for over 2 weeks in the hot sun. I don't know what bothered me more, the smell or the fact that it didn't bother him. She constantly thought everyone wanted to fuck her all the time, even strangers. Dude, I knew a girl like this. I was in some classes with her and we got along fine, but apparently through the grapevine found out she'd been talking to everyone about how much I wanted to fuck her. I then found out she had been saying something very similar about almost any dude who interacted with her. It started to come off in a very sad way. It was a frustrating mix of massive egoism and coping. I couldn't tell if it was a self-esteem thing or what. She had a boyfriend at the time, but I felt kinda bad for the dude. I was friends with a girl like this for a while. She thought that any interaction she had with a man was him flirting with her, and if anyone in our group of friends started dating someone, she would tell us how she had also dated him and she had called it off. Of course, we would ask the guys about dating her and they all had similar reactions. What? We didn't date. I had a few beers with her and some friends / walked her out to her car one time / danced with her at the bar once 6 months ago. It's really difficult to maintain a friendship with someone like that. I always felt like she was competing with me on a romantic level. Found out the reason he rented the house next door to his parents was so his mom would make his meals, wash his clothes, etc. Had the audacity to say, "Let me call my mom." When I mentioned I was a little hungry, lmao, like it's a flex in the same way summoning a personal chef would be. Poor lady, although I suspect her enabling is much to blame for this. She was best friends with another girl who she constantly spoke shit about when said friend wasn't around. It wasn't the sole reason, but this was a large reason why I got out of the most toxic relationship I've ever been in. She constantly complained, talked shit about all of the closest people in her life. Parents, best friends, AA sponsor, co-workers. Eventually this I started getting directed at our mutual friends and then my friends. It was only a matter of time before that vitriol became directed at me, and sure enough it did. She did not take the breakup well, oh boy. Brief, but scariest relationship I've been in. Oh, I had an ex who did that. She got super mad at her best friend for wanting to go out for sushi a week before her birthday when she wanted sushi. It was totally on purpose just to steal her idea of getting sushi. Because you obviously couldn't go out and get sushi 2 weekends in a row. A couple weeks later they were best friends again. Couple weeks after that I got ghosted and realized I was better off. In college I was seeing a girl who lived in student residence with me, but on another floor. She would always talk about how another guy, Tom, on her floor was obsessed with her and would show me texts between them. She said she only talked to him because he's harmless and that they're friends. I never met him. After a week, her ex-friend from high school pulled me aside and told me not to trust her. She said that the girl I was seeing is a notorious liar and that Tom doesn't exist. That she added her own number in her phone as Tom, would text herself, and then delete the sent messages. The only reason her ex-friend knew is because she saw the text message exchange happen in the reflection of a mirror when they were in the same room. I was close with front desk and asked if they could look up the names from that floor. They said yes, and told me that there was no guy named Tom on her floor. I noped out of that real quick. My brief girlfriend bought me some hair care products before she came over because it was right by her house. In return I said I would go grocery shopping and make her a nice dinner. I thought this to be an even exchange. That night I found her looking through my trash for the receipt for the groceries to make sure that the $30 she spent on me was equal to the amount I spent on her dinner. Edit, just to clarity before it becomes two-man versus woman. I saw her parents do this to her. It was her upbringing. She did this in every aspect of her life which gave me the ick, but she did not have very good role models. Dated a guy who seemed chill but kept talking about social media and how people, exes, were scheming against him. I believed him at first until it got to a point where he thought things like a photo someone put up was an indicator that they were getting him back when these people were literally just doing normal things and posting normal stuff. I think he was schizophrenic, but it was really unsettling. Months later he rang me out of the blue to ask me about a link between his ex, myself and a friend. The link was butterflies, and because of this link he thought we were conspiring against him. First red flag, he wanted me to drive because he had an interlock. Second, he talked about biting the ear off his ex's new boyfriend. Third was the jugs of urine scattered in his living room. There was no second date. You just casually mention jugs of urine, like you don't think that kinda needs a little more explanation. I just briefly saw in his house when I dropped him off. Definitely didn't ask him about it as I felt like that was my cue to bounce a sap. I later found out from a friend that he was a hardcore alcoholic, and when he was drunk he would just piss into jugs instead of going to the bathroom. Making assumptions about me on the first day. I suppose someone like you, or a girl like you, wouldn't understand. I am literally right here. Ask me. Don't tell me what my life is or is like. Anyway, eventually I got up and left. They messaged me what my problem is, so I wrote back something to the effect of, a boy like you wouldn't understand even if I told you. Maybe not instantly killed, but a really lovely woman telling me in a sincere voice that she loved me 3 to 4 hours after meeting her, freaked me the out in a way that I guess could reasonably be described as the ick. In no way was the statement couched either, just straight up I love you. Think I responded, no, you don't. I dropped the L-bomb on our second date. She replied, oh thanks. She was the first woman I didn't repulse, and I think at the time immature me thought it was true. I used to joke about it and hold it over her head years ago, but as time went by my attitude changed. I now say she should have run for the hills or called me out and asked what are you talking about, because obviously I didn't know what it meant. 38 years and counting she still puts up with me. Went on a date with a guy I met at a party. He made me prove that I liked Lord of the Rings by answering who said what when he quoted someone. He pulled out a notebook of really poorly drawn anime characters and asked me if he could draw me. He was a lot shorter than me and asked if it bothered me. I said no. Then he said good. I like Amazonian goddesses. He kept trying to put his jewelry onto me despite my protests. He asked what I wanted to order for food, then ignored me and ordered me something else and got frustrated I didn't eat it all. He referenced being arrested, made me guess what for, and when I refused to guess for not knowing him well enough he said GBH. He was a trainee doctor and asked if I'd ever broken any bones. When I replied yes, he said that he was going to look up my x-rays and the icing on the cake. When I wanted to leave he got my knee-high boots, slipped them onto my feet and zipped them up and said you should always be treated like a goddess, my Morticia Adams. All one date. Well, this got weirder and weirder. And to top it all off, when I did get to his, he said, do you want some slides to wear? I replied no thanks, and he went, no, you'll need them, and the fear in my stomach arose like, what? Why am I going to need them? His intonation was strong on the word need. Well, I sure found out when I stepped into the bathroom to call my friend to get them to come rescue me. I walked in, a dank smell permeated the air. I soon realized it was from the peachy pink bath mat on the floor. This bath mat was once meant to be cream. It squelched underfoot as I flushed the toilet, causing water and stink to flood out everywhere. You went to a second location with this guy? You are brave. Realized he was faking seizures our entire relationship to get out of helping me do chores, cook meals. Edit, we dated for less than a year. Found out from his friends' family he never had a seizure in front of them. Came home one night after working a double. I asked him to please try to make dinner. Found him asleep and woke him up to let him know I was home. Where's dinner? He said he had a seizure. This caused an argument where he admitted he faked it. He said his seizures were caused by flashing lights. Took him to countless doctors and no one could replicate what I saw all the time. After he admitted it, it finally clicked. He's been faking it the whole time. She wanted me to only call her the name of her high school bully, who was Guy, that she said she couldn't stand, repeatedly. Too much to unpack. Edit, this happened like 5 years ago. I was 23 at the time and didn't really know much about dating except for what I learned in high school and was just coming to accept my sexuality. I admit, when things started to get intense I should have ended it, but I got out. This was supposed to be a little haha, look how crazy this relationship was thing. I cried my tears and am doing so much better for myself. My ex always wanted to do Airbnb getaways, but she would always suggest places that are literally mansions, and she expected me to pay for it myself. I argued against some of these places because they were too damn expensive, and she mentioned that her exes made almost as much as me and they would book these Airbnbs no problem. I never told her at this point how much I made, and that turned me off her completely with that statement. First date. I was filling gas and she started going through my phone. I saw her go through it and continued to fill gas as she read my text messages. I'm a fairly open person with little to hide, but I do value trust and honesty. Soon as the pump clicked she put it back in a hurry. I skipped the dinner plans and dropped her home. If I can't even trust you with my phone, I can't trust you with my future. I didn't address it immediately. She didn't know I was driving towards her house until we got super close, at which point we had maybe 2 minutes left together. In a calm and I'm disappointed in you tone I told her I caught her in the act and this blatant breach of privacy was a deal breaker for me. She's too old to be acting like an insecure teenager. She was 26, and that she should address this behavior before pursuing serious relationships. She knew she was in the wrong. She stayed quiet till we got back and left the car without a word. Still no apology though. Edit, I do have a phone password, but my car is a trusted Bluetooth spot so it stays unlocked when connected to car for music. Making spills, messes and leaving it for long periods of time without cleaning it up, like months. My sister's husband will leave dog pee on the floor for days or just pour bleach on it and then wonder why he starts coughing when he literally just made mustard gas. They started calling themselves poor before humble bragging about making $200,000 a year and owning 2 houses that their parents bought for them. Maybe they meant poor in character. I went on a date with a seemingly nice guy in my early 20s. It went well, so after dinner we cuddled in the back seat of his car in a quiet country area listening to music. He gently played with my hand and fingers and gave me a little massage, so relaxing. When he got to my wrist he looked at it, flipped it around a few times, and says in a lustful voice, "It would be so easy for me to break this little thing right now." Edit, I said this in response to someone below, for you guys asking about what happened after. It was maybe 2007? I don't remember in detail what happened next. I kind of just played it off like tee hee you're so strong until he took me home. Kind of tried to de-escalate, so didn't acknowledge that statement too much. Just kept the conversation moving to something else and was careful to not embarrass or upset him. I didn't keep seeing him. I was busy for the next dates he asked me on, and then acted as boring as possible until he lost interest in me eventually. We went to college together and were in ROTC together, so avoiding was kinda hard. He started a relationship with someone else pretty quickly after that. She would make up her own names for food at restaurants and try to order them. No, it wasn't part of some joke. Example, when ordering Cinnabon Delights from Taco Bell, she would say I want bonbons. Edit, my problem isn't with people having nicknames for food, my issue is making people who are taking your order decipher what you're trying to say. OMG, I went on a date with a guy who loved showing how wealthy he was. We went to a carnival and he was pulling cash out of the ATM as I stood away somewhere close by. He PSS'd me over and was like, check it out. He had a whole 4K in his account. Then later in the date he showed me text messages between him and his mother where he was bragging about me being fat, and his mom was like, get it. Like WTF now. I noped out. He would message me constantly after that. Weird dude. Edit to add, no, he didn't grow up poor. I did. Yes, 4K isn't a lot to most. But I was 19-20 when this occurred, and like as many of you have pointed out, 4K is a lot of money to a poor person. That's why I called him wealthy, haha. But the texts between him and his mum are the part that weirded me out the most. Guess I should have led with that, haven't thought of it in a while lol. Also, thanks for the laughs. Overconfidence. Had one guy who I was on a first date with. He was nice enough at first, but then he started bragging that I should be happy that he chose to drive 1 hour to see me, and that he had other chicks he could have seen instead. He was overly confident that I was in love with him. I noped out so fast. If you like this video, you can subscribe. We'll be glad to see you here.